There's that. For the final battle. Oh yeah, this. For the final battle, Raidmar uses magic to revive Grimson and turn both of them into Chaos Dwarves. It's worth mentioning that they're able to use magic because they were
Chaos Dwarves.
Chaos Dwarves. Like, that's the curse, that's what the curse entails, is that you're still, the reason that the other dwarves couldn't use magic was because of the curse, and because they resisted the curse. So, if anybody was like, but dwarves can't use magic, well, these dwarves could because they were specifically Chaos Dwarves.
Speaking of the curse, I think it's time for Robo and my lore debate.
Yes, you have a short amount of time to try and debate, but yes, go.
Okay, Robo, you first.
Alright, so we know that Zamorak cursed the dwarves so that if they used magic, they would turn into Chaos Dwarves slowly over time. This forced the Dwarven race to either turn into Chaos Dwarves or figure out how they can just stop magic. But the problem was, they relied so heavily on magic, living underground with their lights and their food, that it was like near fatal to them. Like, they were going to become as chaotic as they were as the Chaos Dwarves, but they managed to overcome it. They managed to live without magic, and later on, eventually, they became the most technologically advanced race in Galar. And I feel that while this definitely wasn't Zamorak's intentions, but it does fall right down his philosophy. Chaos, improving things over time. He probably just wanted people to fight in his army, but...
Or yeah.
But the fact that they actually overcame it, I'd imagine he probably admired that. Like, wow, you actually got past my curse and became better at it. Wow, that's pretty cool. But Lime thinks that...
Should I explain?
Yeah, you can explain.
Let Lime explain his own position.
Alright, well, I feel that the dwarves are smart enough so that if they had the ability of magic, and if they didn't have to basically reset their society, they would have been able to become even more advanced, because they could have kept the magical power for their inventions, and they could have used it to bypass a lot of the obstacles that they made on their inventions. Like, they could have just bypassed an obstacle that maybe machinery had a very tough time solving, so they could just use magic. And dwarves are clearly intelligent because of what was it? From the memories of Gothics. It said that one of the homeworlds was an artificial, natural, you couldn't tell the difference between them, and I think that that's the dwarven homeworld. So it's clear that dwarves are very, very intelligent. So they could have been able to use that magic and that technology in order to become even more advanced than they are today. And as you can see, the Imcamdo dwarves are the most advanced because of their pickaxe. That's just like a small part of it. They were the most advanced, and they had access to both magic, they had access to technology. So if all dwarves could do that, then that would be amazing.
Well, and my response to that is, the first thing is, we can't assume that the race that Guthix is talking about in his memories was the Dwarven race. And even before this quest, I had assumed it as a Dwarven race at first too, but I was thinking about it again. No, you can't tell the difference between artificial and natural, but something down the thing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Something went quiet, so I wasn't sure. But anyway,
yeah, we can hear you.
He says it can't tell the difference between artificial and natural. If that were to mean the dwarves, that would mean the plants would look like they're artificial, like the plants were created. He can't tell if they grew metallically or if they were created metallically. I think that's why I think it's the gnomes instead, because the gnomes work with their trees and their other stuff, so...
And crystals.
All the crystals and stuff. That stuff does grow naturally, so it's not hard to think that a tree house might be natural or might be artificial. Did it grow that way, or did they change it so it growed like that and artificial? So yeah, I think it could be referring to the gnomes instead of the dwarves for the first point. However, the other point about the Imkemdo being more advanced because they still had magic and stuff, I'm not exactly sure on that. I mean, during the Fourth Age, after the dwarves have already gotten over the curse and all and started using magic, they did have some contact with the Imcamdo. So we can't really be sure that the technology that Imcamdo has now is purely from their own technology. It could have been something to do with sharing ideas with the dwarves who had not been able to use magic and putting them together. So yeah, in the end, magic and technology is more advanced than just technology or just magic. However, I'm not sure we could bet that they would be able to come to the conclusions with technology if they weren't forced to use it, because they'd have no reason to.
But you have to remember that most of what the dwarves have today, like all that steampunk stuff, it's the result of the lava flow mine opening 100 years ago. If they still had magic, that lava flow mine could have opened like 1,000 years ago.
Or they could have opened the lava flow mine and thought, cool, lava. And that's it. They would have not had the purpose or the incentive to figure out how to use that. They might not even have the technology to think about how they could use it. We don't know what their technology was before they had steampunk stuff, so it might have been the thought process that they had earned because of being able to work without magic that they thought, hey, we could use this, because otherwise any race could just find that lava flow mine and just say, ooh, let's make steam stuff out of it.
I still think that the dwarf mindset of like being profitable and all this advanced stuff is something that came with them, not just something that developed after 1,000 years of darkness or something.
It could be. There's nothing sitting in fact that it could be. I mean, it's very possible they could be more advanced than they would if they had magic, or it's just as possible that they might not have ever figured out the technology because they had no reason to.
I mean, I had a point down about the cave goblins, but that's basically the same as the Incando. They had like this magic and science combo. I know that.
I was looking into that after you mentioned that, because I was like, the fact that you said they could be use magic was like a stun to me. I was like, wait, can they really? So
I mean, they have the teleport spheres.
They can't.
Just look at old.
They can't use magic. Like they don't have they don't have magic in their blood. They can't take runes and cast a spell. However, Oldak, and I think other cave goblins have used his idea. They can take the runes and they can just chop them up and use the magical properties inside it to use their inventions, which I think is kind of weird, because
That's
we know
not how runes work.
I know magic doesn't work, like it doesn't contain the magical energy to use it, but apparently there is something to it that they could use it. It's not enough to be able to cast magic without it, but it is enough to be able to use with other technology to use something out of it.
I think the cave goblins might just be a special case, though, because clearly, once again, it's like that's not technically how runes work, but somehow they've managed to make it work. Mm-hmm.
Also to note that Grubfoot is a very special goblin. Magic and goblins isn't very usual. I mean, they're not like the dwarves and completely incapable. It's just that it's something you're born with. Like, you'll have magic in your blood and you can use magic. Grubfoot is one of the rare goblins that actually has magic in his blood, and he can cast magic without runes. And it's actually his blood not his blood, but you actually use his magic to be able to defeat Bandos at the end of the Chosen Commander. They use his magic combined with Oldak's inventions to be able to come up with a thing to stop Bandos. But that's getting really off topic.
Yeah, I'm out of points, and it could go either way, really, just depending on how the dwarves were before they were dwarves, really.
I could use a story point, like an author point of view. How they want to show Zamorak is not pure evil. They want to give him some good points, but still stay with this philosophy. If I were writing this, I would definitely have it be because of Zamorak, but he's not being nice and all. He's still in character, but his philosophy of chaos improvement is still visible.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Thorlab actually mentioned something earlier about it reminds him of Juna's views on the lunar island Relica. I'm not actually sure what that entails, so while I make one more point, I guess, on this debate, it's if you could explain that. But Thorla also says that it kind of ironically ties into the crazy lady Acadia's conspiracy, where Guthix apparently, according to her, created Zamorak to create balance, because balance through chaos and what?
It's like even more out in left field than the innovation via chaos.
She's an idiot, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, she is totally a loony, but this kind of does tie into that a little bit, where Guthix might want them to better themselves with a good mix of both, rather than rely on one for their lives in society. I mean, it's kind of a moot point, because they just don't have magic to use, but, I mean...
What I have to say is that Zamorak's plan failed. Chaos Dwarves clearly, they're not intelligent. They're not dwarves. They're mindless.
They're just like zombies.
Yeah.
They're chaotic, that's what's wrong.
Well, I mean, I guess they are. I want to say we don't entirely know that, because the way that most Chaos Dwarves were created and brainwashed. Like, do we know anything about, like, free societies of Chaos Dwarves? No, we know nothing. So, Thorla says chaotic without purpose.
They're just so chaotic that they can't string together a coherent thought.
Yeah, too chaotic. So maybe the curse was too strong, and maybe this wasn't something that...
They were meant to be followers, not leaders.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just... And they were meant to follow him specifically. So it's interesting. I like what Robo has to say, and I wouldn't have necessarily thought about it that way. Just like, where it's like, why would you develop technology if you had magic? Like, just why? Because
dwarves have a profiteering mindset, and they're...
But if you can use magic to do the same thing as with technology, that's the thing. It's like, that's really the base of the argument and the debate is, would you go and go out of your way to develop technology for something you can just solve with magic?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because they, like for the lava flow mine, all the steam stuff they could have just done with magic. So why invent something that would be redundant and obsolete before it even gets done?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not trying to gang up on you, but we're trying to get...
It's not that. It's just that in my opinion, for dwarves, it just matters which one is more profitable. Like, which is more efficient, which will pull up...
But wouldn't magic almost always... It's hard to say. I guess it's hard to say. Like, would magic always be more efficient? More profitable? I guess maybe not. We don't know.
I do have something to say in your favor, though, Lime.
What?
Regardless of Zamorak getting rid of their magic, they wouldn't have been able to do magic event for too long anyway, because it's the Fourth Age. No one could do magic, not just the dwarves.
But if you're born with it in your blood...
Well, you still...
Yeah, it depends if they use runes or not. We know that Mkamdo use runes, but...
Sure. How runes work is that they channel the magic so that you can control it and not destroy yourself.
Unless you're a cave goblin.
Unless you're a goblin, because if you're a goblin, then just law physics. But
what even is physics, or what even is the rules of magic?
If you were a troll, you could just eat like some death runes and then you'd be set for life.
I know, right?
The reason why some races can use magic without runes is because, which confuses me with the way that the goblins can use runes and crumble them up and put them into benches, because the reason why it confuses me is because the runes don't contain the magical energies themselves to use spells. The magical blood inside the races is what makes the magic. The runes just channel that energy so you don't blow yourself up. Because it's all that power in your blood. Like in the universe of Gelnor, if you wanted to, if you really tried to, you could cast a spell.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
You're gonna blow yourself up. Kids.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit way off topic here. Actually, it's not. It's completely on topic, but it's a total. It may be an irrelevant parallel. I don't know if any of you have read the Aragon series, but Thorla has. Has any of you others, have you read the
heard a lot, but never got to reading it, and I feel bad about that.
I know that I have one of the books sitting on my shelf right now, but I haven't.
They're amazing books.
I should.
I would strongly recommend you read them. But there is an extensive discussion, especially in the first book, where I don't think this is going to spoiler really anything, because this is the entire basis of the book, but where Aragon learns he can do magic. Like, he is a magical being, and he can do these things, but he's learning how to control it. And one of the major themes in the book is that everybody has limits on where magic is. And you can kill yourself if you don't limit a spell, if you don't put some way to end a spell. And it seems like that's what the runes are there for.
Much.
Everybody can cast stuff without runes, but it's too dangerous to try.
That's exactly it.
And because, like, in the case of Aragon, I'm just going to straight up, this is from the fourth book, but in one of the battles near the end, you have one magician against another magician, and they do a double kill on each other because they cast spells on one another, neither of which has an end. One drains the other's body of all water and of all fluids, and the other turns the other one to stone or something like that. Like, the intent is because there's no limits on it. It can self-destruct you. And because each of these wizards cast that spell without a limit on the other, they knew that they were going to die. And so it was kind of like a multi-kill on multiple levels. So again, like, this is an entire magic discussion at this point. Like, what is magic? What can people do about magic? And I'm sure this is a conversation that they have actually had, specifically at Jagex.
It's so odd.
Which is kind of cool to think that
It's so odd that a dwarf quest is what caused us to have this entire discussion about it.
I know, right? Like,
A dwarf quest.
what? But
I do have something else to say on that point, though, once you're done.
they actually, and Walter says, how can we go about combating the magical threat? And that's actually a key point in the latter half of the Aragon series, which is really interesting as well. Like, the Aragon series, if you like RuneScape, go read it. It is amazing. The series is awesome. And Thorlaw 1000% agrees. Like, it is an absolutely incredible series, and like, it is, I was worried that it was going to be a kind of, like, it was going to be too young adult, too kiddie. It is absolutely not. It is just, yeah, it's awesome. So go read it, and you will...
But not now.
You will start to think about magic incredibly differently.
But not now. Subscribe first and finish the podcast.
Yes, but I think this is going to be in a separate video.
Well, yeah, still, subscribe first.
But yes, because this is in the other video, you should subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Seercast.
All of us.
Yes,
and the rest of us will be in the Twitters for the rest of us will be in the link. I don't know if Thorlaw has a Twitter.
Yeah, he does.
Twitter.
He does.
And Walter does not have a Twitter.
Walter, please.
Thorlaw does have a Twitter,
please.
and we will get that, and we will put that in a thing. Walter doesn't because he's Walter.
God damn it, Walter. Anyways.
Hey, to each their own. He somehow keeps track of all of the JMods on Twitter. But, anyways.
Last thoughts? Or...
Well,
Hold on just a second. What were you going to say, Robo? Is this relevant to what we just talked
it's about the magic stuff.
Okay, then keep going.
I was saying that they couldn't control if they didn't have runes, they just blow themselves up trying to cast magic. But very experienced wizards can learn to cast magic without runes because they're so used to just channeling their energy. They can just do magic without runes.
Or Majorat.
Yeah, that's what the Majorat do, because the Majorat are so intelligent that they can limit themselves without needing runes. But we also know that
this is
the Lunar Clan can as well. They don't use runes.
Yeah, I'm gonna make another parallel to Aragon here, is that the question about magic is the inexperienced mages versus the experienced mages. People like Aragon himself are much better at controlling their own magic and can therefore use it in a much better fashion than those who can't.
I mean, it's really like the question of young drivers versus old drivers. Like a young driver who is a young drunk.
But that's assuming that you have driving in your blood. But this is different because magic is in your blood.
Well, yeah, but I was just gonna say an experienced person is more likely to kill someone than an inexperienced person is more likely to kill someone than an experienced person.
Yeah, raw power versus refined restraint is what Thorlaw says.
That brings up this might answer something that I had a question about a long time ago. Well, now that we know that Zamorak can alter the magic that Guthics put in the dwarves' blood, we did know that Guthics created magic, and I was wondering how does someone just do that? So maybe he just did the opposite of what Zamorak did, and when they say Guthics actually put magic in their blood, he literally did.
Yeah, that's probably what. Actually, that's interesting because we all would assume that that's a lore fail. Like, if before we knew this, we would kind of just assume that that's a lore fail. Like, you can't create magic. That's not how it works. But maybe it is how it works.
That'd be really interesting.
Well, you could use an Elder Artifact, but.
Oh.
Well, I mean, but why would the entire world be using an Elder Artifact to gain magic? Like, we haven't used that.
No. I mean, like, Guthics used an Elder Artifact to put magic in their blood.
Oh, I mean, but what I'm saying is, like, you can't just create magic. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, you can't just there was no magic, now there is magic.
So you can't create, something completely brand new out of absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's
the law of conservation.
But it seems like he's using, the law of conservation of matter, pretty much. It seems like now he physically put magic in the gnomes, and the dwarves, and the humans, and the whatever was on the planet, and anything else that came to the planet afterwards that comes from others, has a different brand of magic, often which is stronger,
or maybe
such
no
as
magic, like the goblins, or
that. Yeah, that's true, because the goblins came from Ubiusk. They were not on the world when Guthics showed up.
It's true.
They were brought by Bandos in the Second Age?
Yeah, Second Age.
Yeah.
The Majorat were clearly not on the world when Guthics was around. They have their own brand of magic. The demons were not on the world when Guthics was around. They have their own brand of magic. This is why we were like, well, you can't just create magic in the First Age because all these other places, but it's not creating magic, it's allowing people to use magic. It's facilitating the use of it, so.
That's really... Okay, talk.
You go ahead.
Well, it's just kind of interesting, if the gods are giving, the dwarves magic, so would it be just all the magic, as far as we know, is just, it doesn't necessarily differ that greatly from god magic, or is that already known, or...
Or maybe, the criteria of being a god is the ability to facilitate magic in some other creature.
Yeah, it could just be, we have some lower tier of magic experience, or, we got only a certain amount of knowledge while the gods still retain their knowledge in order to be called gods, or else everyone would be a god, and that's pointless.
Yeah.
And when everyone is a god, no.
Nobody's a god.
Hugh syndrome picture from The Incredibles.
I think it has something to do with the Stone of Jazz, because maybe that's the original thing.
It always has something to do with the Stone of Jazz.
It all goes back there, because that's how you can use the rune crafting altars to figure out where the Stone of Jazz is. Because
it's the 6 degrees of the Stone of Jazz.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of like what Thorla said. yay, more references from random other media and shows, like kind of with Full Metal Alchemist. I assume you're talking about the Philosopher's Stone? That whole concept?
Oh, I'm not sure.
This is, I mean, it's all in the fantasy genre, and they all use one another. Like, they've all come from D&D.
Oh,
and previous stuff, but it all does tie together. So all of these comparisons are absolutely valid.
Yeah.
There needs to be a grand unified magical theory.
Pretty fun.
I'm gonna look it up now.
Basically, what...
There probably is one, actually.
Yeah, what Thorlament was father, which makes sense from the manga, because I kind of remember from Brotherhood, I think is the one that's closest to the manga. The regular one's just like some spin-off. But, yeah, I do remember that, because it's just the one guy that has the power to give other people just a variant of his powers. Of course, he's the most powerful being and they all answer to him, but it's the same sort of concept that they're getting still a taste of the kind of power and they have their own abilities all to themselves. So, kind of with Zamorak and the Chaos Dwarves.
Okay, well,
yeah, so
I've done a quick Google search, and don't Google Grand Unified Theory of Magic. Don't.
I'm doing that now. Too bad. You know me.
Kid, please. Oh, Brobo says longest podcast ever. No, it's actually nowhere close.
Oh God.
How long?
Our longest is 2 hours 40 minutes.
Oh, we're at 2 hours 30 minutes.
And we're at 2 hours 6 right now. And this entire section is being cut out.
Oh, it is?
And it's going to be its own video.
Oh, I see.
Which is going to be, this is really cool stuff. Like,
yeah.
I'm a total dork for saying this, but like, this is really cool stuff.
It is, because
let's continue this on the forums. Good. Yeah. Right?
Well.
What?
Okay.
What is a forum?
I don't know.
Well,
something I don't use.
I'm personally going to continue this on Robo's thread on the forums.
You do it. Like, and if you can't link this, you couldn't link a video, could you? Because it would be really awesome if you could.
On the forums?
I'll ask JMod.
Yeah, like link, because that was like, yeah, okay.
I'll link Robo's,
yeah.
I'll link Robo's thread where I'm going to continue the discussion over here.
Okay, then we're gonna call that a day. For any of you who are watching this specific video, again, subscribe, follow us on Twitter.
Spam us about magic.
Now go back, and now, spam us with magic stuff. And now, if you have any questions on any of this, like what we mean, what we are trying to say, if you want to point out an obvious lore fail about Aragon that I made, if you want to spam about Aragon with me, I will be more than happy to oblige. But yes.
Oh my gosh!
Make a post, to do something, leave a comment. But yeah, and now go back to watching the other video.
Bye.
So.